So there's a new combined miniature box game themed around the Darktide video game, an interesting teaser for the Adeptus Sororitas, a new miniature for the White Dwarf, and points changes around the corner for Warhammer 40k for 3 different factions and the balance update. Let's do a roundup of news and releases from Games Workshop. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking Warhammer news and model reveals. In this video, I thought I'd do a roundup of a whole bunch of different topics that I didn't necessarily think warranted their own video in their own right, but I still found interesting enough to cover on the channel. As mentioned, we've got a new miniature box themed around Darktide, a new White Dwarf miniature, a Sisters teaser, points updates for 40k coming, and a new Skaven model for Age of Sigmar, a Warlock Engineer. Jumping straight in, let's take a look at the Darktide box game. I'm sure most of you are fairly well aware with what Darktide is, but it's basically a console on PC game where you take command of one of 4 different characters, going about their serious business of purging some cultists and traitor guardsmen from the shadows. Interestingly enough, for a computer game based on a miniature wargame, it itself seems to have spawned its own little miniature wargame, basically a box game with some Citadel miniatures, and its own little mechanics that aren't really too connected to Warhammer, a hex grid layout where you command 4 characters to go fighting against a whole bunch of cultist and poxwalker hordes. Games Workshop has done this sort of thing a fair few times in the past, maybe sort of gateway games where people might get interested and try playing them, and maybe might be tempted enough to move forward to things like Kill Team or 40k potentially. You definitely might attract a few more people who enjoy the computer game here and actually get some miniatures in their hands. The actual content of the box is kind of interesting though, and these combination ones often are for established collectors. It looks like in the box set you get 4 miniatures to represent the actual player characters, an Ogrin, a Primaris Psyker, a Kazakin to represent the veteran, and the Blackstone Fortress Pious Thorn miniature, the one with the Zealots Vindictor type thing with the flamethrower and chainsword combo. I feel like it might disappoint people a little bit that they haven't come out with new sculpts to represent the characters there, as they're just going with established things they had around that kind of loosely fit the archetypes but maybe not exactly. Going a bit more with slightly lower effort and just fitting the general feel as opposed to actually making the characters from the game. Interestingly though, there could be at least a fair amount of miniatures that you could add to an army here. It'd be interesting to see what sort of price tag this commands when it's out, as that Primaris Psyker is £20 or $35 just on her own, and I feel like it's probably not going to be crazily north of that, and potentially could be an interesting enough deal for the miniatures compared with how you could buy them elsewhere. Pious Thorn of Blackstone Fortress is a fairly cool miniature, could represent a priest, and is usually around about £13 on eBay at the moment. Ogrins are quite expensive to buy in themselves as well, around $20 or £12 each if you bought their standard kit from GW. On top of that, they say that you get 20 miniatures total in the box, and the rest appear to be made up of either Traitor Guardsmen or Poxwalkers. Just taking a look at the promo videos, it looks like you get at least 8 Traitor Guardsmen, and they look like the ones from Blackstone Fortress as well, and at least 6 Poxwalkers, not sure if there's more. But at least in theory, add up the value of all those miniatures, and you might well be getting a reasonable enough deal compared with what you could buy them from Games Workshop. I guess in theory this one's probably going to be most interesting for Astra Militarum collectors. They can use basically all the miniatures out of the main party. And I feel like if you did want a unit to represent some veteran guardsmen or something, you could probably sort of de-chaos the traitor guardsmen if you wanted, or just have them as cool models to paint up if you'd like. I guess the miniatures contained within aren't enormously helpful in terms of their just combination option, but I feel like for people looking maybe more for entertainment than just building up entire optimal loadouts, there could be something here. In any case, I'd be interested to hear what you guys think of this one. Might have been fun if they come out with some new sculpts with it, but I feel like these board game things often tend to be a bit of an extra option for Games Workshop as opposed to designing entire model lines for. I'm not sure I'd be enormously hopeful for the actual board game itself being a standout, and it doesn't look like they've got any sort of release date yet. These ones don't usually tend to be carried by the Games Workshop web store themselves, so it might be a bit region specific. I feel like there's been a few of these that have only come out in the USA. I'm not sure if this will be region locked or not. Moving on, let's talk Sororitas, and this one's a couple of weeks ago, but I kind of skimmed over it at the time. It's worth a mention though, as it's near enough as guaranteed to be a Sister of Battle miniature. It does really quite clear have their fleur-de-lis-like icon there, as part of a bit of window or scaffolding or similar of a fallen ruin piece. Certainly doesn't look like it's any sort of intact terrain piece, for that reason probably going to be most likely part of a scenic base for something else. Could be something big, or could be something like an HQ choice. I did see that there'd been plenty of rumours about a jump cannon nest floating around out there. and that might fit in well with the previous rumour engine that we saw with the flowing scripts that you can see here. I did think that that one could be possible for the Sororitas if it isn't something like Blood Angels or Stormcast Eternals, both of which have had sort of similar kind of load-bearing parchment before. If so, that would be kind of cool. It would be a very obvious way that they could go with Sisters of Battle if they wanted to. A jump cannoness would definitely be on people's wish list, given that that was an option that they had in the past, and it would be nice to have Seraphim and Zephyrim have something to lead them that isn't just Celestine. In any case, I guess there's a pretty good chance that we'll find out about whatever this is in the Summer Codex, unless it is a bit of a bait and switch with this one. I guess we did have a Vindicare Assassin for the Warhammer Plus miniature taking shelter in some Sororitas Fallen statuary. I feel like it's unlikely to be something like one of the other assassins, but I suppose you never know. Sticking with the new miniatures, and it seems that Games Workshop's White Dwarf magazine is printing its 500th issue next month. A pretty long-running and veteran magazine at this point, starting around about 1977 according to their article. They certainly have done plenty of other White Dwarf miniatures in years past to commemorate other milestones. This particular version of Grombrindal seems to be one that's themed around Age of Sigmar. They have had him take to various different settings in the past, often being a bit more classic fantasy or Warhammer 40k. I feel like they've done fairly well with the sculpt there. There's nice flowing white beard there, and hefting a jeweled axe aloft. There's a few nods on his miniature to the Fire Slayers and the Caradon Overlords, and plenty of vanquished foes littering his base, various discarded Chaos and Orky armor plates. Looks like he'll be going on sale next month for a limited run. I feel like quite often for these ones, they usually have them on sale for around about 2 weeks or so, then they're gone. Probably priced around the same sort of price as their standard hero prices, maybe somewhere around the £26 or $40 mark. I'm not sure if they're doing anything particularly big or spectacular for their 500th issue. I'm sure they'll be taking a look back at things in days past, and apparently the mini's going to get some Legends rules for Age of Sigmar, plus rules for Underworld's Cursed City and Warcry as well, so going fairly heavy on the rules front with this guy. I did quite like the little compilation of various different incarnations of him that they've had in the past as well. They had a few of them showcased, though I remember there's been plenty more, like the one on the servo arm, the one where he's standing with Mr. Bugman. There's also been a film director, pirate, and a power-armoured mini-marine in the past, it seems. For Warhammer 40k, I have mentioned this in passing in a few videos, but it really does seem that we've got quite a lot of points updates incoming. In fact, 3 different sets with different time frames over the next few weeks. Really not sure whether they're going to try and consolidate all of this into one big update, or we might have some scattergun changes coming out. The last points update that we had for Warhammer 40k was when the Dark Angels Codex went live, and they didn't really make too many changes there. Now we've got 3 other codexes launching though, and for fairly major and popular factions. They've probably not helped Adeptus Custodes on the popularity front with the rules of their codex, plus all the rest of the drama. In any case, for points updates, Orcs and Custodes should in theory be this week. They've often seemed to go live around Wednesday or Thursday sort of time so far in 10th edition. I feel like it's probably going to be this week, as they usually turn up before the codex goes on full sale. So when people do in theory finally start receiving their copies of those books, they can potentially have the digital points ready to go. Hopefully Games Workshop manages to land the factions in a way that's fairly balanced. I can't help but think that maybe Orc points changes might be kind of light touch really. Perhaps doesn't really feel like there's all that many units that might need drastic adjustments. Maybe Flash Kits could use a drop given that Captain Badrock's no longer a thing sadly. Though I feel like for quite a lot of the rest of the stuff, the new detachments might offer them a fair bit of help. I feel like you might be in a situation where it's kind of impossible to cost things like Orc Walkers with one solid points cost though. I'm guessing they're probably going to be kind of underwhelming in anything but Dread Mob, but obviously front and centre there. Hopefully they manage to strike the right balance with the Custodes and don't have them just completely dead as a faction right out of the gate. Just for raw strength, decreasing points cost for them would help them on that front, and might balance out a few of the colossal nerfs that they got with the Codex, though I feel like that's probably not the way that most people really want to see them addressed. There's certainly a fair bit of pushback against making factions more hoardy than they were before in 10th edition. Otherwise, with Tau Empire going up for pre-order this weekend, that means that we should be getting the points cost for them sometime within the next 2 weeks. I guess in theory, if we're following the same sort of timeline, that might be in a bit more than 2 weeks' time now. Though as mentioned, I do genuinely wonder whether the Warhammer 40k balance updates might incorporate either one or both of these, so they're not just making changes to the points literally every week. Their hint in the Kill Team Metal Watch a few weeks back basically said that they'd be back in a few weeks for Warhammer 40k points changes, and a few kind of implies either this week or next week, so that one could basically be expected at more or less any time. Should be fun to take a look when we get them though. I'll certainly be covering them in full here on the channel. Games Workshop's keeping the new reveals coming for the Age of Sigmar launch. I've been enjoying the Skaven ones that they've shown off so far. A couple of weeks back they had the Clan Rats. Now they've shown off another core unit to the faction in the Warlock Engineer. He's armed with a warp-lock musket and might well be eyeing up some firing patterns for his warpstone fuel creations perhaps. Overall nice enough miniature I think. Reception that I saw to it was at least fairly positive, maybe going for a bit more of a commanding generally sort of look as opposed to just completely bonkers mad scientist that Skaven often go for as well. Maybe nice to have a bit of a mix of the two though. I did quite like the detail of his bionic leg on the right leg there, propped up on that tactical piece of machinery. The previous week they have shown off some new Stormcast as well that I hadn't actually mentioned in a video yet. I'm sure Stormcast players are still recovering from the sheer amount of miniatures that they're going to be sending to Legends, though admittedly they have come out with a pretty awesome sculpt for this guy. Apparently this one's a Stormcast Reclusian, so probably a bit of a veteran even amongst the people who keep on getting reforged. Quite a busy miniature with a fair bit of detail here, a fair bit of bling and parchment hanging off them, and I do like the little mortal incense bearers that accompany them into battle. In a way, they sort of remind me a little bit of perhaps what they were going for with the Blade Guard veterans for the Space Marines, but for Age of Sigmar. Slightly busier Warhammer weirdness models, as opposed to maybe the slightly more simplistic Stormcast that the range first launched with. Overall, I do quite like the miniature, though I feel like maybe quite a bit of that is the fairly awesome paint scheme that they've done here. We'll be interested to get your guys' takes on him down in the comments below. Finally, back to the Warhammer 40k news, and looking to the future, we still have a fair idea as to what's going to be coming over the next few weeks. Tower and Recruit are looking like the next major Warhammer 40k release. All of those are going up for pre-order this weekend, including that new combat patrol with the Devilfish. If you were looking to pick any of those up, I do have those discount links down in the video description that can help support the channel if you'd like to. Otherwise, beyond that, I guess the next major release for Warhammer 40k will be the Chaos Space Marines. 2 Battle Force boxes plus the new Combat Patrol. I'm very interested to see the detachments in the new codex. Hopefully they'll be fun and effective, as I feel like they're going to be quite important for the Chaos, given that this will be the best way to get different flavours of the Legions in 40k. Otherwise, beyond that, I guess we'll have individual releases for the Custodes Shield Captain and the Orcs Mech, Kill Team Termination for the Brood Brothers versus the Votan Hernkin Jaegers. The Leagues of Votan players, I'm sure, will be looking forward to getting an Infiltrate unit and one more thing in their roster. And then build for summer, we've got Codex Genestealer Cults, Adeptus Auroritas, and the as yet unrevealed Mystery Codex that might well be agents of the Imperium, though at the moment we haven't had any sort of teasers or reveals for them, so I'd guess they're still at least a fair way off so far. Finally, and with the Chaos Space Marines now being the next release after the Tau, I thought I might mention the channel giveaway for May just one last time in a video. This one's going to be for both sets of the Chaos Battle Force boxes, the Dread Talons and the Veterans of the Long War, 3 people getting both of those. Should be a pretty massive and solid foundation for a Chaos army, around about 1500 points worth of spiky Space Marines. And as ever with the giveaways on the channel, if you'd like to enter for it, there's 2 ways to do so, supporting the channel either on Patreon or on social media. For people supporting the channel and keeping these videos coming, channel Patreons are automatically entered each and every month, the list of active backers pulled and fed into the random number generator. Otherwise, you can choose to support the channel on social media completely for free, and you do that via these 3 actions: subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the Facebook page. And then to actually be entered for the draw, a Facebook giveaway post appears on the 1st of May. That post is active for 24 hours. In that time, responds to that post with a picture of any 40k mini or imagery, along with your name and the date handwritten within the same photo. The last bit is just to make sure that it goes to real hobbyists and not someone spamming loads of different accounts. I then add all the Patreons and the social media entries together, do the draw with a random number generator and pick out the 3 winners, and then they'll be announced on the channel update video on the 4th of the month, this one around about the 4th of May. The box sets will be posted when I receive my order of them. Obviously we don't know exactly when Games Workshop is going to release them at this stage. In any case, feel free to check out the channel's Patreon page or the Facebook page down in the video description, and there'll be further giveaways like this each and every month. I do try and keep something interesting coming. In any case, looking forward to what you think as always. What do you make of new White Dwarfs, Stormcast and Skaven? Interesting Sisters terrain plus the Darktide box? Look forward to hearing your ideas down in the comments. Finally, if you have been enjoying the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page. It is the main thing that allows me to keep these videos coming quite so regularly. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into those prize giveaways with the chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.